Hey, let's look at a code example to kind of get this idea of keywords. What I'm going to do is I'm going to explain this bit of code using keywords, and I'm going to explain the keywords as I go along. Okay, for some of you may not have seen any Python code before, that's okay. Okay, so hopefully by the end of this little explanation you have a vague idea of what's going on. Okay, hopefully, fingers crossed. Let's go. So first of all, I'm starting off with name. Now name is a variable. Variables in programming allow the computer to remember one piece of information. Now that could be a bit of text, it could be a number, or it could be something a bit more complicated as we look at that later on. So the variable name, and name is just something I've called it, is going to remember one thing. Then we've got this input command. Now inputs on a computer essentially where information goes into it. So what this command does is when I run the program, it will ask a question, in this case enter your name, because that's what's inside the brackets. So it's going to ask that question, and the user, the person using the program, is going to type in whatever name they have, so Bob, let's say. Okay, then that value Bob is going to be stored inside the variable name. Okay, and that single innocuous looking equal sign is called assignment. Okay, so what assignment does is takes whatever's on the right hand side and stores it in the variable on the left. Now I've used very specific words there. The thing on the right is known as an expression, so it's basically it will be calculated and it will boil down into a single value, and that single value then gets stored, assigned to a variable, in this case the variable name. Variables can be used later on in your program. Okay, so this next line, line 2, is known as selection. Okay, it's essentially a question, and it's called selection because it's going to make a choice. It's going to do one thing or it's going to do something else. I'm selecting a path in the code to go down. So all questions need a question, obviously, and if statements will have a yes no question, a boolean question, yes no, true false. Okay, so it starts off with a variable name. Now at this moment in time, that variable will have remembered the name I typed in. Remember, I typed in Bob. So it's got that value Bob inside it. I then want to see, well, did that person actually type in anything or not? Did I just forget to type Bob in and press enter? You know, is it blank? That's what little quotation marks mean. And then we've got this operation. Okay, it's comparing the name, well, the value inside name, the variable name, to a blank string, okay, an empty thing. Are they the same? Yes or no? Equals. Now that is known as an operation or an operator, okay? So the operator here is comparing whatever's inside the variable name to an empty string. If they're the same and it's true, it's going to run line 3. And line 3 is output. Print. It's going to display something on the screen. In this case, it's going to display the text, you did not enter a name. So what that little bit of code is doing is essentially saying, did I enter a name, yes or no? If I did enter a name, brilliant, good stuff. If not, well, I'm going to tell you didn't enter a name. I'm going to give you a little error message, okay? Line 4, else, is basically the false part. It's saying, okay, well, if you didn't enter a name, I want to do something different, okay? In this case, I want to say, oh, hi. Very friendly app, as you can gather, and it's going to say whatever was inside that variable name. Okay, so we've come through all those keywords: variable, output, operator, assignment, input, selection. Okay, so you can start to see how we explain code using these keywords. Here is a bit more detail. So we've got my assignment, as I pointed out. An assignment, remember, is storing a value into a variable. Operator, it's going to be performing an operation. Output gives you information out, and a variable, which is really important in programming, remembers one thing. Okay, I'll put a little caveat on that for those of you a bit more advanced. Hang on a second, don't we have arrays we can store inside a variable? That's true. Complicated data structures aside, variables store one thing for now. Okay, let's just focus on that. So here's a summary of those keywords, because as I said, they're really important. Variables stores a value in memory for later use in the program, and it can have its value changed, because that's really important in programming. Assignment, when a variable is given a value or has its value changed, so I assign a value to a variable. Operators, when I do a simple maths or logic operation or some form of calculation occurs. Input, when I provide the information to the computer, and output, when information comes out. Okay, these keywords are very straightforward, but they are important when explaining code. So when I have a line of code, we call it a statement. Okay, so a programming statement is one line of code. The order in which these statements are run is known as the flow of a program. So we have a flow. So we start at the top and we go down to the bottom. So effectively we're saying it's run sequentially, in sequence, in order. Okay, and program flow becomes really important because although programming does start at the top and work its way down, actually sometimes that changes. Okay, and it changes for two reasons. One is, well, three reasons really, but we'll look at two only. One is if statements, okay, selection, and the other one is something we're going to look at in a later video, which is iteration looping. So here is another example. Okay, so give examples of the following keywords. So I'll just pause for a moment to let you think. What examples can you think of? I don't want to say that's right, but I am. That's right. Number one is available, number two is available, and total is available. Okay, so all three of those are variables. Operators in this case, we've got plus, because it's performing an operation. Assignment, well, we've got three examples of assignments, here, here, and here. And output, well, we've got that print on line 4, which is doing the output. So in order in which each line of code is run, is 1, 2, 3, 4. It runs in order. Okay, it's a sequential flow. Flow control allows us to change that flow. So we use it in two ways, as I said before: if statement selection and while loops iteration. Okay, selection is when different codes run based on a true-false choice. Okay, and we saw an example of that in the first piece of code. And iteration is where code repeats until a condition. Okay, so keyword focus here: sequence when code is run in order, selection when different code is run based on a true-false choice. Iteration is when code repeats itself until a condition is met, and program flow is the order in which the lines of code, the statements in my program, are run. Okay, those have become really important words when we describe. So let's look at another example of sequential code. Okay, again, you might not be familiar with it, so I'm going to just quickly run through it. First of all, I have two variables, n1 and n2. Or three variables actually, sorry. Guess as well, I forgot that one. And then I am using a little bit of extra Python code where I'm picking a random number. Rand_int is short for random integer. Okay, an integer is a whole number, so it's picking a random number between the values of 1 and 10. Okay, and remember it's then assigning it to the variable n1. Okay, it's then picking another random number between 1 and 10 and assigning it to the variable n2. Okay, variable names, you can name them however you wish to. There are a few rules with it, but for the most part you can get away with most things. We'll look at that in more detail later. Then I got my output. What is n1 plus n2? And what that's going to do is it's going to ask a question: what is the value of two random numbers added together? Okay, so it's going to print out a lovely little looking question on the screen. Then the user can enter their answer, and that answer gets stored, assigned, into the variable guess. I've got a little bit of extra code here, which I'll introduce. This will take the input that the user's entered in and turn it into a number, an integer number, okay? And it's known as casting. And again, we'll look at that in more detail later. But effectively, what I'm saying is, well, you've typed something in, I want that to be a number, thank you very much, because then I can maybe do some calculations with it. So we need to work out the answer to the code. So let's say I've got these two random numbers, n1, n2, and I want to add them together and store that value in a new variable called total. Okay, how might I do that? So here I've got the answer. So I've got my variable n1. And I've got the operator plus, just going to add them together, and the variable n2. So I've got two variables which are going to be added together, and that value is going to be assigned to the variable total. So it's going to be stored in the variable total. Okay, so the next step is, well, how do I check to see if the variable guess, the value that the user's typed in, is the same as what the computer's worked out? So we've got these two random numbers, we've added them together, displayed the question on the screen, what are these two numbers added together? The users then enter their answer. We want to basically say, are you correct, yes or no? Okay, and to do that, we need selection because we've got a choice. And two things could happen. Okay, we're going to change the program flow. Either we're going to say, yes, this has worked really well, or no, it hasn't. Here we go. There's two ways I can do this. I've got two examples of how this could be done. There's probably more than one. Okay, so the first one, I'm saying selection if the variable total is equal to the variable guess. So I'm using the operator equals there, and if it is, we want to say well done. And then I've got another operator which is not equals, exclamation mark equals is not equals. And again, if those two are not the same, then we'll say it's wrong. Another way of doing it is same question, is total equal to guess? Okay, so is the variable total, I've checked with the operator equals, same as guess. If it is, say well done. Otherwise, else, we do that. Now else essentially says, okay, if this wasn't true, then I'm going to do this instead.